Order. Mr. Theo, would you mind leading the pledge? We do the prayer first? Take your pick. We'll do the pledge. Let's do the pledge first.
Okay, face the flag and repeat with me. Pledge allegiance to our country. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Director Miller.
Everyone, please bow your heads and pray with me. Dear Lord, we come before you this evening thanking you for this beautiful day and the blessings that you give us today and every day. We ask that you continue to bless our lives. We ask that you watch over our meeting this evening and bless our minds with wisdom that we might make decisions that are in the best interest of our water system and its members. We ask that you watch over and protect our military men and women, first responders, all those who work to keep us free and safe and healthy every day. And lastly, Lord, we pray for anyone who may be sick, suffering, anyone who's lost a loved one recently. We ask for your healing power in their lives. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that. Okay, we do have a quorum of 5 audio and video recorders that are in use. The stenographer is not with us tonight, so it is being taped as well as live. Any members that wish to address, if you can please fill out the member forum. All right, approval of minutes. We have the June 21st, 2022 regular meeting minutes and transcripts, and the June 29th closed executive session redacted minutes. Everybody had a chance to look?
Yes, I have a couple comments,
Okay.
corrections.
Director Theo.
Both the minutes and the transcript for the approval of the May minutes only say approval of the minutes. The minutes say approval of the May 17, 2022 minutes, and it was approved unanimously, and the transcripts say approval of the minutes of the special meeting and the regular meeting, but there's no mention of the transcripts. So I think it needs to be correct. We did approve the transcripts, I'm sure, too, so I think it needs to be amended in the minutes to correct that. That both the minutes and the transcripts for both meetings were approved.
Did the transcripts say that I mentioned transcripts as well, or just minutes? How about if I adding the transcripts in the May 17th minutes?
Yep, and add,
Okay.
we have to add it to the minutes and transcripts, because the transcripts just say minutes also.
I'll entertain a motion to that effect for the May 17th transcripts. We already approved the minutes, the meeting minutes, and then the June 21st regular meeting minutes and transcripts, and the June 22nd closed executive session redacted. Everybody understood?
So moved.
You understood that?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll make the motion of what you just said.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right. So Mike Kennedy
Do you have something?
and Don seconded.
Yes.
Anything else? Any other discussion? Everybody's good with what's in the minutes? Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 I'm going to abstain because I have not read the transcripts yet.
Okay.
Yep.
We got 4.
4-0-1 abstention. All right, so approval of June memberships, 379 new members, 366 cancellations, and 3 transfers.
Motion to approve new members 379, canceled member 366, and transfers of 3.
Mr.
Second.
Kennedy and Don seconds. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0, motion carries. Unfinished business, Mr. Legal Report, Mr. Will Dunaway, take it away.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As an update to the acquisition of the right-of-way, I did have a good conversation with one of the property owners, Ms. Neville. Mr. Ms. Neville owned a property that will potentially be impacted on one of its sides along 87. There was a fence and a shed. We had staff go out, staff looked at it, and they've concluded that they're gonna bore under that. She was willing to entertain a signing of the easement for the appraisal price, but they were just concerned. I think she's elderly. She mentioned her husband is in his 80s, and so moving that shed was gonna be an issue. But I think we're working through that. I think we'll resolve that. That may be a positive, and we may be able to close before having to take that through to the circuit court. We've also been negotiating with the church, and they seem amenable to the offered price. There was a little bit of back and forth on, they wanted a tap fee. We'll resolve that probably in the next couple of weeks, and that will be resolved. That is only, I mean, that's not going to get us to the whole acquisition. Obviously, we're going to end up having to file a lawsuit. We know that because we have the estate. There's one property that's caught up in an estate, and we're in contact with at least one of the heirs, and they said, you know, you're going to have to sue us because we don't know how to decide anything. So we'll have to have a judge to tell us how that works. Obviously, as we've mentioned before, we can't file the lawsuit without a signed lease. But in anticipation of that, I sent email and conversation, or to initiate conversation with the county attorney last week, just laying this out. The next two things that have to happen are the county has to get a lease. The county Board of County Commissioners then have to vote to authorize us filing a lawsuit. We've drafted that lawsuit. It's ready. I also sent the county attorney a second draft letter. There was indication that Commissioner Peach may have wanted to send another letter to the property owners. So county attorney has that draft. I have not heard from him. Again, I think that he's waiting for Commissioner Peach. I think Commissioner Peach is waiting for the easement in the Air Force. And then I think when one of those drops, the others get into place.
Okay.
So that's where we are on the acquisition.
Okay, so when you say that it's the county that goes and sues and goes to the property, or is it actually us with their permission?
No, you don't have the police power to condemn. So it's a county action. That's why that's always been a joint project, which is why, of course, this is operating in the sunshine. So it's their action. It'll be their action to move forward. The county attorney has simply asked if we would be the one to carry the water, and this board has said yes, and we are, Clark Partington is there to, ready to go when that authorization is hit. Now, I also mentioned to him, and I mentioned to you, you've already authorized this, but when you file the lawsuit, the way the process works under a quick take is you file the complaint for order of taking. There are two things that you have to prove. One, that there's a public purpose, and two, that you have a need for that property. Once the judge makes that determination and you deposit into the court registry the good faith offer, which is your appraised value, which is that $119,000, then the court will order the transfer of that property. Then the county will then own it, and the project can proceed. There will be a legal process in which we will be working through for the next maybe years, working on the value of that. What was the value of the property that the county just took, and the court or a jury of 12 will determine that.
Okay. And again, from our perspective, a lot of this we're waiting on the county to do. It's not something that we.
Correct. The two events that have to happen is the county has to get a signed lease. The county, through their Board of County Commissioners, have to authorize a lawsuit to file against the property for a quick take. And once we get that, we'll be able to file.
Okay. Anybody else on the board have questions?
I just have one. If there's somebody other, I understand from the estate that you're going to have to go to court. Is there any other ones that are probably going to have to require us to go to a take?
A lot of times, property owners don't get real excited until, there's a service of process.
But if they get a court date, can they change their mind?
Oh, absolutely. No, we will continue to negotiate throughout the process, and we can close at any time we reach an agreement.
Okay.
So that process, the negotiation process will continue at all times.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Don, Mark? Mike?
I'm good.
Okay. All right, member service, pool fill sewer adjustments, Ms. Amber Buckles.
So, the last meeting, I was asked or instructed by Dr. Dowles to go back and locate the pool fills that were requested. including the two members that attended the board meeting and submitted that request to you directly.
Okay.
There's a total of 28 customers, and the total amount is $1,408.93.
Correct.
That's great.
What is the two at the bottom, ma'am, about the leaks?
Those were the two that came before the board
I-
that had leaks that they had asked for us to waive because they had the leaks, and the board said no.
Yeah, okay.
So,
I just want to make sure we didn't refund that, right?
yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
That it?
Question, how much work is it for staff to handle these types of adjustments? Is it hours on end, weeks of work to do 28 adjustments?
So, for me, when we were doing the adjustments, I would receive the email, I would print it out, and I would keep them in a file until the bill printed, or until I had readings on the account. Then I have to go in and research. So if a customer really knows what their pool is holding and how much money, how many gallons of water they're putting in their pool, the adjustment's pretty easy. I can base it off of what looks like normal reads for them by looking at their account and what they're requesting the adjustment for. When it doesn't, then I have to go and do the research. So you're telling me that you filled the pool during this period of time, I have to pull the information from analytics to see if what you're telling me is accurate. Then I have to figure out how many gallons of water do you typically use during your day, and adjust that out, and then I can see that the pool level is done. So it varies based on the information that I receive. I also get many interruptions during the day, so I sometimes stop and go back. But I know that when I ask billing to calculate how much time they spent on it, once they receive the request from me, because I have to put in writing what the adjustment is, give it to billing so that they can make the adjustment. Then they have to scan that document into, put notes on the accounts, scan the document into the customer's account information, and then we have to have it verified that it's on the right account so that if we ever need that information in the future, we can go back and get it. So for billing, it took them about 4 hours. For me, I'm estimating it probably took me about 6 hours by the time I print everything out and do the research and make the adjustments.
Okay, thank you.
And this list here does not count those that contacted you that didn't have pools and wanted adjustment and stuff like that, right?
No, we tried to keep track of how many calls that we actually received, but that was it was difficult to do. We received quite a few, and some of them were calls for like requesting pool bill adjustments from 2016, or for pool bill adjustments that were done last year that they'd already received the pool bill adjustment. So there were a lot of calls that customer service and billing took.
Okay, hopefully the right word's out now. So change the subject a little bit. Are we gonna have a grand opening when because they're looking forward to moving into their new place over there? Is that
Yes.
next week, the week after?
First and second week.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
She was ready to move in.
They're gonna try to move by.
I know, she was ready to move in last week, I know.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, any others on the pool, Phil? All right, new business, review of May 2022 financials. Mr. Campbell,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You'll see in your financial results and drivers, there was a small adjustment to the 401k professional fees. We had to make an adjusting entry for meeting room charge. We had some mileage that was billed from an extended period of time. You will see some office expense is up. We have InfoSend as our new bill processor, and the invoices in this process were a little bit slow, so we're caught up February through May. Also included in that number, you'll see that's up is employee event, company picnic expenses, so forth. That's included. Postage is up in the same manner through the InfoSend billings. Postage is how we get the bills out. There was some elevated expenses in wastewater repairs and maintenance, the Gordon Evans lift station, Hemlock Duval lift station, and the water plant and collection system, a little bit higher than anticipated R&M. Our groundskeeping was budgeted at $4,600 a month, so you're going to see the average continues to be about 7. We contracted for a little more areas of work to be done than anticipated in the budget, and that'll be ongoing for the rest of the year. Beyond that, there's really not much to comment on unless there are questions.
Board, anybody?
I had a comment during our meeting that the mileage, I was a little bit disturbed that we were doing mileage for like 4 months. And an issue with that is people aren't filing for it. The mileage was from December 21st to April 22nd, so they're not submitting their vouchers in a timely manner. So I asked Dr. Peavy if he would look at if there was some way the staff could make sure that they submit them in a more timely manner. And if not, we don't pay them, no.
Well, you know, if the board gets involved, we won't, for sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so as you know, monthly, Director Thiel and I meet with the finance and with Dr. Peavy to go over this. So, you know, the biggest thing about this, if you'll notice, our water sales and wastewater sales were decent. We actually hit the budget on the revenue side. Taps, no, we're not going to. Taps are, you know, again, that's a moving target where we cannot forecast how many builds are going to go on in the community. But wastewater sales were on target, and staff did a wonderful job of managing expenses, you know, really right at close to actuals, so, and under budget. So it was a decent month.
I have a,
Go ahead, Mark.
I know last month I blindsided Ty on the accounts receivable, and I think we tabled that for an explanation for this month. Is there, do you happen to have an explanation on the amount of accounts receivable? I know we talked about how it was divided into 2 accounts and combined to 1, but it's like at 1.6 million on accounts receivable.
That was our catch-up from the, so we had to back out December and roll in the current month. So I believe I did send you an email on that too. I sent you an email on that. I'm trying to pull up the exact number in my head right now. But it was because of the way we had been running the financials before, we had a December from last year rolled in. So when we backed one out, put the other one in, we recognized 2 months in that month. And now and on the reconciliation I sent you, I showed every month, January, February, March, April, so you can see it broken down. And I can resend that to you. I didn't bring it with me for this meeting, I'm sorry.
Okay, I just noticed the balance is still at 1.6 million on accounts receivable, and I'm
It's
just,
going to stay roughly there until we finish out the entire year.
okay.
We get to the end, we get to the final at the end.
Okay, and then that's not my only question. I also have a question about on the year-to-date, because I appreciate you providing the budget versus actuals and the year-to-date on here. I'm on page 124 of our meeting packet for anyone that wants to, see where I'm at. But it talks about the pension contribution. We're budgeted to have contributed roughly $537,000 pension contribution, and actual year-to-date is 0. So we've got an expense variation of 537. When will we make that pension contribution, and is there any advantage to making it earlier in the year versus later in the year?
The budgeted pension amount that was put in last year was predicated on what the old pension plan looked like.
Mm-hmm.
That was before the salary freeze. When the board elected to freeze salary freeze and closed all and did those things, it created about a $7 million deposit, if you will. It rolled the liability down from 13 million to 6 and change, about 7. In doing so, the required minimum contribution zero this year. So in this time frame, we waited about 6 to 8 weeks for the census to be done for the actuaries. It takes them 8 to 10 weeks to run the models, a lot of models to run. And as we received that, we went to the O&M committee and we gave them a breakdown of it. There was no requirement to fund anything. We didn't know what it would be for this year. It has fallen out that we have no minimum requirement this year, and that the required minimum next year will fall to approximately 250-ish.
If it stays,
If the market stays like it is. If we try and maintain the retirement benefit at an 80% funding level, which is not as simple as that sounds, there's like 5 other rules, you end up doing what's called chasing the market. So had we actually been funding at that same level throughout the beginning part of the year, we would have lost 20% of that in market fluctuation. So the majority of what drives that required minimum contribution level is really market movement. And since we froze the plan and we dropped 6 or 7 million out, there was no required contribution this year.
Okay.
There will be next year to start up. So the question then remains, do you continue to fund at a previous level knowing you're in a down economic cycle? If that's the case, and every time you throw a dollar this year at it between now and beginning of the year now, we would have had to replace that with 20 to 25 cents, and you would end up chasing that market value throughout the year. If we were required not to make that contribution, which we are not, it does not make sense to throw good money after bad in this market when our requirement starts 2023.
Okay. That explains it. I mean,
Sure.
I wasn't aware that our requirement this year had gone to zero, so that's I guess for the budget, that's a good thing.
Well, Mr. President, we just got the actuary numbers at the end of May, first part of June, so we just got those and seen those ourselves, and we discussed that yesterday with the O&M committee.
I have one other question. On the year-to-date, when it goes down to the summary of, net income, budgeted net income, the total net unrestricted income on budget, it has a negative 2.4 million, and we're at less than 400,000 to the negative, so we're better than budget, but I'm wondering, were we really budgeted for a $2.4 million loss as of this time? And then on restricted, it has a budgeted net restricted income of 9.6 million loss. And
What page are you on there?
I'm on page 126 of our backup, but it's the year-to-date financials, and it starts with income, then it goes to expenses, and then it summarizes it on the net income. And I'm on the year-to-date over on the right-hand side. I was looking at those numbers today going, wait a minute, it just doesn't look right to me that we would be budgeted for that big of a negative.
Well, there's an assumption there also of $10 million worth of total restricted capitalized expenses. So on this page, this is driven, that's driven out of the budget number.
Mm-hmm.
And that there are assumptions in that budget that may or may not come to pass this year due to Egglin and so forth. So that's kind of a soft budget number in that we can anticipate a year ahead of time that Egglin would have been in full, as an example, would have been in
And we
full.
would have spent the money.
And we would have spent the money, but we did not at this point.
Okay. It's just, I guess what I'm looking for is what did we budget year-to-date for net income, and where are we actual net income? And those numbers are not even close, so that's why I'm confused. And
Well, that's why-
it's me that's confused, but I'm hoping for some.
Well, that's why if you go through the analysis review back up at 112, where it talks about actual revenue and actual expenses.
Yeah,
So the budget was just a target, but if you see everything, you know, even though we're under in revenue, we're also under in expenses as well.
But that's just for the month. I was looking at.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
Paid on taps or revenue to show.
Oh, there's a summary for the year too on the first part.
Hey,
there.
Mark,
The first graph.
would,
hang on. Go ahead, Mike.
would page 123 help your answer? Because that's what their total revenue is, what they're projecting on page 123. That's your revenue. Your first one is your budgeted.
Okay, yeah, those numbers make more sense.
Okay.
Okay. Maybe I'm just not understanding that other chart.
Yeah, the ones at the bottom of the other one, it's with restricted and unrestricted breaking out, but you add back Eglin and all that, and it kind of,
That we haven't spent.
yeah, that would be a good one to sit with.
Yeah, anytime.
Ty,
Okay.
Ty and Dr. Peavy, they'll straighten it all out.
All right, no other questions?
Okay. Don?
Nope, none.
Okay.
Oh.
Alan, anything else?
I was gonna make a motion.
Dallas?
No, sir.
I
All right.
make a motion to approve the May 22 financial statements as presented.
Bill Field has a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, we have 2 seconds.
Don's got it.
Don's got the second. Any other discussion, any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
5-0, motion approves. All right, Finance Committee updates. Mr. Thiel.
All right, the Director Lynchard's not here, but the Eglin project, you should have all got a copy of the minutes from the last meeting, and our attorney just covered most of all these important facts, so I don't really have anything to add to
Can I
that.
ask one question? Hey, Mr. Dunaway?
Yes, sir.
So if that Eglin Project Committee meeting is just talking about internal processes to hauling of our water system, we can have more than one director there? Can we have more than one director there? Or does that, in any shape or form that they're talking about Eglin, come under the sunshine?
Yeah, I mean, we have made the determination that the Eglin project, and so all decision-making processes regarding it would be in the sunshine.
Okay, that's fine, that's fine.
I mean, I can imagine a scenario in which there could be a discussion of, like, for instance, you know, you're gonna buy a tractor that, or a truck that might also be used in Eglin,
Yep.
but that's gonna happen outside.
Yep, nope,
But if
that,
it says Eglin, I think it's safer to be in
Okay.
the sunshine.
we'll go with that then. And we get a pretty good synopsis, I just asked the question. Okay, Bill, sorry.
Okay, Director Linnell, you have anything on capital improvements?
So we got the big truck in, new pump truck, so that bill hit. That's good though. We've been neating that. Otherwise, yeah, the resetting, taking another look at what the true forecast is going through the end of the year. So looking forward to that, seeing that next month. But no, otherwise everything looked, from my memories, everything's on track. We're just waiting on a few things, like same as Eglin, waiting on a few things.
Okay, Director Kennedy, do you have anything to add on the budget? We've already kind of beaten that horse.
Yes, sir, nothing more to add.
Okay, that's all I have.
I do have one thing there. Director Lynchard last meeting had a couple of questions. One was cleared up by legal at the executive session. The other is he asked about the spray field costs that were in our budget and why they weren't in Hidden Creeks. And this board made the decision and paid for and voted on to pay for spray field costs like we would any other, like we would for Greskovich or Holly by the Sea News, or Holly by Sea News, sorry, not you, Holly by the Sea ponds. So that's kind of why that is. I just wanted to give him an answer to that. And he actually had a second comment about we were purporting that we were not paying any cost of the golf course, and the actual statement was that this company was not paying any golf course operational costs. So we're not subsidizing the golfers like they were in the past. So he had a concern about that. I just wanted to make sure, matter of record, that that is not the case. We are paying for spray field items, but as we would if there wasn't a golf course, but as fact for golf course operations, the water system in and of the whole is not subsidizing those.
I would add one thing to that, Mr. President. Yes, it's true, we're paying for the spray field items, but we're not paying for the cutting of the spray field, which would be a normal cost that we would have to pay for, but the golf course obviously cuts it different and more often, so they're picking that up. So
Well,
our water company is getting a benefit of the basic free cutting.
I just felt, he brought that up, I felt I owed him an answer to that, so unfortunately he's not here for personal reasons. But he got his other answer at our executive commission, so. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
There was another matter that Director Lynchard brought up at that meeting that I was asked to look at, and would now be the time to clarify that. It had to do with the bylaws in Article 9 and whether the bylaws established the company as a just cause employment entity as opposed to an at-will, which is the state. I can hold it at another time.
Considering Director Lynchard isn't here. that
Yeah, I don't
may,
remember that one, I just remember his two for the, we didn't cover that during the executive session?
Right, it came up at there, and
Okay.
if you want to add, and I was asked to review it. I have an answer, I can
Okay, yeah, if
email
you-
that.
Would you mind sending it
I
to
can
all
do
of
it.
us, that way we all,
Yes, sir.
okay, thank you. All right, item 3, organizational resources, conflict of interest policy, Mr. Cross.
Yes. So since January, we've been working with a third-party HR company called Morale Resources. They've been reviewing our compliance, our policy handbook, processes and procedures. So we have been asked to bring forward it was previously called the nepotism policy. We would like to be called the conflict of interest policy. That would be for you guys to review. Basically just talked about the moonlighting clause that they had, the original policy needs to be revamped to conflict of interest, family members, and full disclosure of any partnerships for any contracts we would have.
Are you looking for, Dr. Peavy, a motion to accept this policy?
What we'd like to do, sir, is come back in the month of August with the whole
Okay,
proposed changes, but because the board had asked specifically regarding the nepotism portion, we had asked the independent third party as well as our legal counsel attorney to take a look at that. And so this is what we would propose for the board to see in that regard that they had asked for.
so you're just looking at it, asking us to review it, and then
That specific, yes,
next
sir.
month
And then
we'll,
next month we would bring it before the board
Okay.
to review the employment handbook.
The one that's in our minutes, sir, is the draft and the football for all that
Yes, sir.
stuff?
Yes.
Okay,
All right, it's in our packet.
yeah, it looked good. I mean, I
Okay.
had no,
So we had an independent third party review it, draft it to meet the requirements, legal requirements. We also asked one of the staff attorneys from Clark Hardington to take a look at it as well, Mr. Daniel Harrell. He reviewed it and gave his approval.
Okay, there's also 2 other items I'd like, since we're looking at the HR policy as a whole, the HR handbook. One is the termination policy. I see that the term, but it doesn't discuss how or why or who. Can you give us an idea what best practice is for that?
So we typically just follow the letter of the law. So each violation is going to be as different as the person that does the violation. So it just depends on egregiousness of what it is. But the only standard is for our company, everybody gets a letter of termination explaining why they were terminated.
Okay. Does it discuss how or where or who's at that meeting that this letter goes to them?
You know, because it's going to be different per within.
But what is HR best practice? I mean, is it a group of 5 that gaggle around a person, or is it just the supervisor in HR? What is the standard?
So if it's something where somebody has had a consistent argument with multiple managers, you would have them all in there so they could be ready to have a discussion if needed.
Okay. I know we had it in executive session. I'd like to see if we can expand on that, exactly how you do that and where you do it. You know, in private, you chastise in private, you praise in public, sort of thing. So who would be there? You know, more than one manager, but definitely not anybody outside their chain of responsibility, I would imagine. So if you wouldn't mind getting the best practice so the
We'll
board
get
consider?
Mr. President, we'll get the independent third party as well as our legal counsel to review that.
Yep.
Make sure the draft's included in there
Okay,
as is necessary.
So I got a comment then to follow up on what I heard from Jared, which I hope is not necessarily true. So what I think you said is, number of people that might be in there could be impacted or decided by how many people had problems with each other, something along those lines, and there's going to be a conversation. Are you saying there's a conversation during the meeting where the employee is going to be terminated? Isn't that a little late to have the conversation? Or, so what did I hear wrong?
So there's really no legal guideline. You could have a full termination in front of everybody they work with, but
well, I can tell you, this board would not be satisfied with
Nope.
terminating somebody in front of everybody they work with.
correct.
Like I said, my feeling, and I think we talked about in executive session, is you chastise in private, and would assume that means you fire in private and you praise in public. So if you could just, like Dallas said, if you can get us a best practice of HR.
Well, do we have a policy?
There is, no, the termination policy does not talk, no, I'm just asking them to look to expand.
Kind of like a
Understood.
third party stepping in and maybe giving some recommendations. I think that's a good way to go with it.
So that was one, and then the other thing is, the board understands that you folks, staff, CEO, HR, managers have the responsibility and the ability and the oversight to hire, fire, and that. But we also feel that at some point, if they're not, kind of like the whistleblower policy, that it should not be a case of where an employee contacts the board with whatever grievance they feel, and then are fired for that. So I would like, again, to go back to that, kind of like the board of directors email that members had. I don't know if it would go with the whistleblower policy or anything, but again, the board discussed, not that we would get into the business of that, but that it's kind of like non-retribution. So if an employee comes to the board with a concern, we go to the CEO, as we should, but that's not for retaliation.
I would agree, Mr. President.
Okay.
We would look for guidance from the outside counsel and our internal counsel to make sure that if there's a grievance of any sort against management, myself or whoever that would be, that there would be a policy and a guideline to go by.
All right, because it just goes with that, hostile work environment, all that, they need an avenue, and again, not that the board would be in the hiring and fire business, but kind of like that whistleblower of, our oversight policy and procedures. Because I'm going to tell you, I have an email from an employee from a lower level manager who told them, if you talk to the board of directors, you will be terminated. And I don't, in our executive session, this board particularly said, that's not what we want.
I think the difference and the perception of the difference is that an employee has every right to go to the board if they have a grievance, again, against management, so that there's no retribution. On the other side of that, the board has made clear that it is not the board's place
Right.
to give instructions to employees. That's the CEO's
Check.
job. So there's a clear difference between the two.
Yep,
I agree.
and we agree. And if an employee did come to the board, it should be that the board brings it to the CEO.
Absolutely.
Yep, okay.
Absolutely.
Anything else? Anything I forgot, folks? Okay, thank you for that. All right, item 4, Board of Directors, Board of Conduct Resolution. This again came up with some of our, during our executive session, and some of it needed to be updated. You have it in your package, in particularly that talks about Board of Directors would not be treated, let me read it to you. It's item G, really, and Mr. Dunaway, you reviewed this, correct?
I did.
So basically added item G to the previous board resolution, is said to avoid the perception of conflict of interest or favoritism, all board members will be treated administratively like any other water system member, including adhering to policies, systems policies, and the day-to-day business processes and practices.
Are we looking to approve that? Because this is attached to the resolution. that we
It is
agreed-
attached to the resolution. If everybody's satisfied with that, we are. I know we talked about it in executive session, and this basically went to that board consensus that we talked about. But Mr. Dunaway recommended we do it here and add it to the board resolution, so that it needed updating it anyhow.
Well, I'd make a motion to approve the changes to the resolution of confidentiality and code of conduct for board and committee members.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion?
My discussion is item G, and I'm lost what heading number it is.
On page 4 of 6 there. Sorry, it talks
Yeah.
about board, this is where the,
Section
Paragraph
6.
six.
Yeah,
Yeah,
paragraph
6G.
6, item G, is that the only change to that document?
that is the only change to the document. Correct, Dallas?
Yes, sir.
No other question?
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Any opposed? Motion carries. Member services again, Miss Amber and CEO.
Mr. President, Board, upon review of the current instances where we've had tampering, people stealing water, those kind of things, I went back with staff to look and review what the tampering illegal connection policy was, and what we found was it was really not a very well-defined policy of any kind. In our service agreement that the customers agree to when they set up service, there are different levels of penalties, I would call it for lack of a better term, that would be applicable to somebody that was stealing water, or that we had tampering with a meter box, those kind of things. So based upon the review from the discussions that the board of directors had from 1991 through the end of last year, when customer service and staff came back to the board talking about the legal recommendations and the need to set up this policy, we put together with legal counsel to look at this tampering and illegal connection policy, and we would propose that the board, upon review, approve this so that we can put this in place so that we can handle this going forward. Because right now, there is no defined policy or procedure to go by.
And now, Emerald mentioned everybody, the directors have the timeline dating back to 1991 when
Yes, sir.
the board has talked about this, but nobody's really put it into a policy.
That's correct.
But it was on member applications and that sort of
Well,
thing.
the
that-
penalty portions were, that's
Right.
But there wasn't a process.
Should be in here.
Yeah, right there.
So if I take it Mr. Peavy, what we've done is we've taken a motion from 1991, and everything that we've done over the years, and now we formalized it into a very
Yes,
concise
with legal
policy.
guidance to make sure that we stay within the parameters of our authority.
And this, does this state the Florida statute as well, that the criminal prosecution? Yep, never mind, it does.
It's in the tampering fee structure.
Yes.
I thought it would. The only thing I saw that it didn't cover, and I don't know if this is even, is if I'm on plot A and I'm taking it from plot B and I don't own plot A and there's no account that you're charging to, who does that go to?
I would assume that, I would expect that that would come back to the CEO and staff to make a decision on the way to process
And
and
it
proceed with that.
is that in here? Is that first paragraph that says, this policy with the consent of the engineer and the CEO are the only exceptions?
Yes, sir.
And will this legally sufficient if they,
Yeah, so we actually talked about a scenario that would come up like that, and essentially it was, if we had somebody who was coming in, they were not getting water from their tap, they weren't paying for it, and the idea is we just turn them off and see who shows up to complain.
Right.
And then when they show up to complain, we figure out who they are and make
Right.
sure they open an account in the right name. That would be the process.
and the concern there to me is, well, not concern, the scenario I see is kind of the food truck issue, where, because they're moving, and so they come in, hey, there's a fire line here, I tap in it, and I use it, and then I move on, and they don't have an account with us at that location. And you feel that that's good, that you'll have the authority to call the sheriff or whatever you need to do? Or who to attribute blame to, I guess is what I'm looking for.
Well, I'm sorry, counsel.
Right. Well, two things on that one, on these food trucks. And I think these food trucks are a new area for all of us, but you have county, they're not supposed to just be able to.
Right, and I'm not disparaging
So
food trucks, don't get me wrong.
Right, I'm just, enterprising businesses, with a creative model of delivery.
Check.
But, so that, there is that issue. So you do have a county enforcement issue, but I do think that we will have enough hook in that situation that if it's a complete repeat offender, if we have one that's moving from area to area to area, that we could make a case to, whether they would prosecute it, I don't know, but we could make the case.
It's just how we attribute that. Okay, all right.
In that scenario, do we check with the county to see if the food truck has permission in accordance with them?
We, normally in the course of business, we would look at that just to be sure,
Okay, that's good.
so we got all the facts.
Yep, thank you.
And with the,
Except if they illegally tap it, then we'd have to
Yes,
wait
then
and
we would
know.
call the sheriff's department. and
Yeah,
have them
that's fine,
investigate.
that's fine.
okay.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
make a motion to approve the tampering and illegal connection policy as presented.
I second.
Okay. And would this be, do we have any cases now that out there? Would this be retroactive, or once it's in,
It
it's?
couldn't be retroactive.
Okay, all right.
You say it is or is not retroactive?
Could not be.
Could not be.
Okay.
I'd personally like to see us have a full board when we approve this and have a little more time to look at it and look at the history of what we've done in the past and that kind of thing. I'd rather table it a month.
Why? We, in the executive session, the other two nod their head and did the same thing, so. But, and again, historically, and if I remember correctly, one of these boards, James actually was the one that voted and brought up, implementing the Florida statute for theft of services, so. I mean, we do have a quorum. I don't know, anybody else feel the same way?
No, like I said, we talked about it.
Yeah, well, motion is
Motion and second.
still on the table.
I got it. Okay.
How is the new policy different from what was approved 4/14/2021? The legal team had recommendations.
I'm sorry, that time we were making recommendations and just discussing the issues and why we were looking at doing this policy.
But we never put the policy in place.
No,
Correct. All they did was the fining here back in 2009. They said just fine them. But other than that, it's been on the application fee that when you sign up for it, it says you don't. But that's kind of why we're going through this, because there was nothing. There is nothing. The board has never formally voted on a tampering.
Well, and if you
Go ahead, Mike.
what I was going to add to that, Mr. President, is that we didn't just come up with this policy. What we actually did was call the certain speaking folks at City of Gulf Breeze, City of Pace, Midway, and others, just to see what they were doing so that we could make sure or ensure that we were within reason for how we would treat our customers and these specific type of members.
So prior to this policy being approved, if I understand what you're saying, is you would have had to come to get a board resolution for each individual case. Yeah, so I think that having it in the policy is a good idea.
yeah,
And
and
you don't have to do that.
just to add one other thing, I mean, if you guys look at the memorandum that they gave us at the timeline, it's all over the place.
Yep.
In 91, we were doing one thing. In 2009, we're doing another thing. In 2009, doing another thing. So this just solidifies the policy.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 5-0, motion carries. Okay, engineering monthly operations report, Mr. Phil.
There's nothing really in the monthly report that looks weird. The I&I was pretty good in June, but we didn't have much rain in June. Chris tells me that I&I has increased in July. It'll be reflected next month, I'm sure. I think I heard you say something, hundreds of thousand gallons a day.
250,000 gallons a day.
Yeah. So that will increase the annual average. Joe asked me prior to the meeting about a drop dead date when we might hit capacity, and assuming the I&I continues to, on an annual average basis, to be what it has been the last couple of years, we're still a few years away from that based on present growth, which actually has slowed down a little bit lately in terms of FFP sales. So unless anybody has any questions about any of that operational data, go ahead.
I'm like a dog with a bone on this. I'm not real happy with 13.6 unaccounted for loss. What was the goal again? I thought it was less than 10%.
It is less than 10%, and we're diligently trying to figure out what's going on. We're looking for leaks, but we feel like there may be a calculation error in what we get from the meter to the SCADA system that reports our
Because last month you said you recalibrated the pumps or whatever, we thought that was gonna fix it.
We
Obviously it
did,
didn't.
we did the flow meters at the pumps, but what we're doing is going back and checking the algorithms and the SCADA system itself and the way that it translates those signals into the water loss to make sure that that's actual, because it's all based upon the information that we're receiving.
all that comes back, Mr. Thiel, it'll be, we got a leak somewhere in the bottom of a creek or wet ditch or something. We just haven't found it yet.
So
Okay.
we're looking at everything,
Good,
because we do want it to be below.
keep looking, keep looking, because
And what did you say? It was a calibration?
We have checked calibration.
For the flow meter.
Yeah, what was the other thing you mentioned?
The other is the algorithm that goes from the meter through the SCADA that reports it to us.
Got it, okay.
And my question was back on the I&I. So back when I first got on in 2019, do we have quantitative data where we can see that we've actually, you know, with the annual, that we're actually doing better year over year on the amount of I&I versus the amount of rainfall? Like in 2019, we took in, say, 100 million gallons, but now because you guys have been doing so good, you know, you're actively doing it, now we took in 50 million. I don't know, is there a way to say that?
I would say the answer to that, Mike, is yes. However, I&I comes and goes based on groundwater levels and how much it rains.
Saturation.
There's absolutely, positively no doubt in Phil Phillips's mind that they've done a bunch of things to correct I&I, particularly that portion of I&I that comes very quickly.
Yeah.
But for instance, the Woodmont area is still a huge contributor to I&I, and we're still in the process of the contractor clearing out the trees and the brush so that they can go in there and fix that area. So, yeah, I think it has been done, and probably if we put together a chart, it would want to show you a correlation. I just don't know, again, because it varies by
Sure.
the type of rainfall and the groundwater, I wouldn't
Just-
want to celebrate today that we're done.
But you have a gentleman sitting right there who can tell you
Yes,
the
I can
amount,
tell
the
you.
reduction in the amount of I&I that he's received at the wastewater treatment plant.
Yes, we've had a reduction of I&I at the treatment plant. And one of the things, the way we can tell on day to day is, the main plant discussed it the other day. 2 years ago, a year ago, whenever we would hit a heavy rain,
Yep.
in about 45 minutes, you would see a slope up, and it would kind of peg off, then it would go down. Now, heavy rain comes, and instead of it taking forever to get up there and stay there, it spikes, and then it goes back. Rain stops, rain stops.
Gotcha.
So just right now, we just got such high groundwater level right now, that it's just nothing we can do about it. But you can tell a significant difference in the I&I. I mean, it's not fixed, obviously, we're still 200,000 or better above.
Right.
It's a whole lot better issue.
But everybody feels confident we're moving in the right direction. Okay.
So Phil, you mentioned the easement. So those easements are just sewer?
Well, they're actually, the easements are stormwater. as
Stormwater,
well. So
check, okay.
They're originally were set up as stormwater easements, and we adopted them, or the county allowed us to adopt them in the revised plating process when that developer wanted to put the sewer in as an amenity.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions for staff?
Nope.
Okay, member forum. Ms. Sonia Negley?
Do I need to do anything with this, or is this good? Okay.
That's good.
As the form says, I'm Sonia Negley. I'm a member of the Holly Navarre Water System located at 7294 Brevard Street, which is just around the corner. My property is part of what was told to us was an easement that Holly Navarre Water System, that all of the correspondence came from Holly Navarre Water System saying that there was an easement in the rear of my property. However, there's no survey dating back, that I'm the third owner, dating back to the first owner, that says that there was an easement. I've been told by someone who said, I thought it was the CEO, sorry, it's not you, Emerald, that was a mistake, because I now see him, and that was not the person who came out to my house, that they were gonna provide this information, and it's not there. So I paid to have the plat reviewed, which there is no easement on the plat. Then I was told by the same person that it was a county easement. So I went to the county, went to Dave Peach, and then worked my way through Public Works. And I have, even as of today, when I was told again it was a county easement, that it is in no way an asset for the county. It is not an easement, and that their closest easement to my house is across the street at the back of a Woodlands property. So that was incorrect. That was not stated correctly. Now, suffice it to say that there is a sewer that runs along the back of our entire block. I don't know how far it goes, but I know I've talked to every single neighbor on Brevard and Rexford. And so that sewer runs through the backyard. The manhole is actually in the corner, in the northwest corner of my yard. So let's just say that it was an easement of necessity, Florida Statute 704.1. That's fine, but it should not be costing me money. So I was gonna not come before this board because I understand that there needs to be some access to sewer, except for 20 years, well, more than 20 years. The house was built in 99. I bought it in 2006. The access to that sewer has been through my gate. When the first access happened, I and my husband asked, what do we need to do? Do we need to do anything? They said, absolutely not. Just don't put a lock on your gate. They came through the same gate. I have gates on both sides. They came through the same gate from 2006 till 2022. And do you know how many times they accessed that manhole? 5 times in that length of time. 5 times. So let's just say it's for necessity. I wasn't going to come before the board. I paid $1,800 to have a permitted shed. Now the shed was permitted through the county on my property that covered what is being told is an easement, a utility easement. It had it was built on whatever, concrete. So the concrete extends. So if you mess with the concrete on one end, it affects the whole entire workshop. Electricity was running through this workshop as well.
Can I interrupt? So what is it you're looking for this board to do?
Well, I'm about to tell you.
Okay.
Because so all of this is on the property. This is a preface to what I'm about to tell you, and I have a written statement. So on July 8th, your contractor, whom your representative from Holly Navarre Water System said it was the county's contractor, which was a lie, because Andrew Hill, who is the Assistant Public Works Director for the Santa Rosa County, came out and he said, absolutely not my contractor, and we would never treat our property owners like this. Number one, they came out to remove the fencing, which was my neighbor's fence that separated their yard and my yard. And when the contractor removed it, he moved it with a backhoe and a mulching system, which caused shards of
All right, let me ask some questions
wood.
now, because I know that.
Well, wait till I tell you.
Ma'am,
Because
let me
you're
ask
gonna have a
some.
lot more.
No, your time is up. I'm just trying to get to the crux of it. What is it you're asking this board to do?
There's damages to my property.
Okay. As
On
soon as
July
you say-
8th, I called, nobody would even return,
Okay.
that could have avoided
Well,
these damages.
there's a couple things. Did you ever get the letter that says that we're going to work on the easement behind your property? Because they are easements. When you say sewer line, there's easements there, and
Okay, well, I
that's
would
an
like to
easement for
see the
sewer. Fact that-
legal
let me-
easement
if
on
it-
that.
The fact that people in the past didn't do it what they should have done, this board and this organization with this leadership and staff doing it the right way. So it's not just your easement, it's Woodmont easement, and there's one other I can't remember. So they are easements for sewer access. So
Okay,
That's-
well, I would like to see the easement
So
for
if you
sewer
have
access
damage,
because I've asked for it
what I'm gonna
for
ask you,
months.
because I went by your property today when I rode my bike, and it looks like they're clearing like anybody else. So the question is, did you get the letter that said you need to move your fence if it's in the easement?
That wasn't my fence, so I could not remove it.
Okay, then your neighbors then has the issue with us, not you, right? So
No,
if it was his
because the
fence.
shards of fencing and nails came onto my
Okay,
property.
so what I'm gonna ask you to do is gather all your damages you feel you have.
I have,
And-
and I have sent
Okay.
it to this board since July 8. I sent it to the board, I've sent it to staff, I sent the
Do you
photos,
have that
I sent
package with you?
videos.
Do you have that package
I
with you?
sent it to Emerald, but she said they can only get so
Okay.
big of whatever
So
megabytes.
I will, if you send it to the board of directors, or if you make a copy for the board, we'll get your package and we'll get it to staff and legal to see what there is we can do about it, okay?
Okay, but I want to see where this is an easement, because this is a huge
Well,
problem.
I'm probably gonna tell you that if I look over the engineers, they're gonna tell you the property appraiser's site, if you measure your property, that they'll
I've
give you.
paid somebody to do that, I have that.
Well, you might,
And it's not, and the county has said this is not ours.
okay.
Didn't
So I'm
we
just-
have all of those easements surveyed?
Yes,
Yes, we
yeah,
did.
which is.
So we've
which-
got a survey that shows that
yeah,
easement
which is why
relative to her property.
if we get the.
But you can't just say, I've got
Ma'am?
an easement and survey something. We need to know, property owners need to know what are the, because
Ma'am,
it's
there
not
was-
recorded. There's
there
no
was-
record in Santa Rosa County, period.
Well, if you give us the package, I'll work with Emerald or somebody so that we can get that package. We'll get it to staff and legal to review whatever claims you have against the water system. How's that? Okay? Thanks for your time. Any other members? Okay, last thing we have is, we need to do the follow-up executive session. And Mark's out Wednesdays, and I kind of want the thing I was gonna try to do it this Thursday, but I kind of want Daryl's, Mike's shaking his head no, and I want Daryl's thing to be issued. So, how's everybody looking for next Thursday, the 28th?
Good by me.
Yeah.
As far as I know.
Hopefully just 45 minutes, an hour?
I think yes.
What time,
6 o'clock? Yeah, 6 is a good time.
Here,
If this is available, correct?
yes.
All right, so, close executive session on the 28th.
I think it should be by Joe's pool.
We can't do that. 28th at 6 PM.
Mr. Chairman, with council or with?
Let me discuss with the rest of the board members. At this point, I don't think so, Will. It was just the personnel, yeah. Unless anybody else feels Will needs to be there. Are you free in case we do, Will?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else, Bill?
Can we have the bar open?
Mike, you good?
I believe so, yes, sir.
I'd like to just make a statement that it has come to the board's attention that emails from membership to the board of directors have not been getting to the board of directors for quite some time, and your email did come through, so they have fixed the problem.
It's fixed, yep.
Since then.
It's fixed, I've
But
tested it.
I would like to have follow-up on that and know what happened, have IT let the board know why the emails haven't been getting to us, and I would like to have any recovery of those emails that can be done. I think those need to be sent to the board. If they were sent, there should be a record of them somewhere. I would like to direct staff to try to recover those emails and get them to the board along with date stamps.
Okay. Now, it is working because I received another one this afternoon. My only caution to the board is everybody jumping in there with, we need to, if it's something staff can give us information on, then they need to do that before we jump in with our 3 cents, 10 cents, and our experience in which we may or may not have in the area. So,
I just want to see what
Yeah.
our emails have been, our members have been trying to send us for, I would say, going on the last year. Because I've gotten reports that people said they emailed the board and we didn't get them. So I'd like to know why we didn't get them. I'd like to have them recovered and know that the problem is fixed. I mean, that's a big issue to me. If the members can't contact us, we got a problem.
Well, don't forget, Mark, members can always contact us.
They think they're contacting us when they click on that button, and if it's not coming through to the board, that's a problem.
Well, here's the other thing. board members reaching directly back out to members sending us an email should not be happening.
I'm not saying that should happen.
So if they're
But if
not
we-
getting a response from
We're not,
us.
we're making decisions without the input of our members.
And
We
if
made a
they're
decision
not-
on our pool policy without having the benefit of getting emails from the members that was affecting. That is a problem.
I'm just saying from a process perspective, none of us board members need to be responding to.
I agree with you. I'm not
So
saying,
if they don't get a response from a board member, which they shouldn't get, and they don't get a response from staff, then they would easily either call, I'm just saying,
Well, the other part may
the
be,
onus of communication is not just one way with us.
The-
If someone does not get it, they can follow up and make sure.
The-
I'm with you on
they
the
assume
emails.
that we got it and didn't respond or
Well,
didn't care or didn't,
all right,
and that's a
let
problem.
me play devil advocate though, because also that drop-down menu has everybody in the, it's got the wastewater treatment plan, it's got the pool boy, it's got everybody out there, and the board of directors is just one of them. So maybe they clicked on the wrong thing and it went to and they got it taken care of, I don't know. Can we also look at, in IT, is it possible to add I don't want to say this, contact board separate from that drop-down? Let's discuss that. I don't want to make the board the first stop, right?
Right,
The
because
staff
it will
is
be
there
the
to,
first stop.
Amber and her folks in member services do a great job and rectified 98% of those, except those that don't like the answer no. So
Well, and I believe.
we just need the staff to have I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the reason that they come is kind of like this lady here. She doesn't like the answer she's getting, so that's what the board is. We're the
Right.
last stop, not the first stop.
No, that's not true. The staff will contact me back.
And that's why you get this, that's why we're saying you at least have us as your last stop. You
Which
can
is
come.
what I used as my last stop.
Correct, and that's,
And your name and contact number and phone numbers are on no place on that website.
Exactly.
Your name is, the board is,
Yeah.
and your positions, but no numbers.
exactly, because you start with them and then you work your way up to us. Okay.
And Dallas, you mentioned that IT was working that or had looked at and it just dropped
They
up.
had looked at it. There was an issue with the third-party migration of those emails, but it doesn't, Mark, it doesn't go back to last year. It just happened in the last 3 months, and we were not aware of it until we made that change. We did, in fact, spend extensive amount of time with both our IT folks and the third party, and those emails cannot be recovered because we don't know what was sent. Anything that we could find, anything that we track, I mean, there's no reason for us not to get it, let the members contact the board members. There's nothing we're trying to cut out the board from. Anything that comes in, certainly we want to make sure that you get it.
I just know I haven't gotten one since July of last year.
But we've had people before, members that said, I did, and nothing happened. They didn't contact anybody. We hope that if they did, that you got it. If you didn't get it, because I would have got it as well. I'm attached to that just so that we get it.
Right.
Did those that say they didn't get through did you placate, did you answer their questions or?
I have one that messaged me on Facebook, and I said I need more information, and that's when I brought up the issue that, hey, we've got emails that aren't coming through. He said he clicked on the link. He sent me a screenshot of the website with the contact the board of directors link. He said, this is what I clicked on, and it didn't come through.
But
We
you've
have a
taken care
regular
of that.
process.
I have not talked to him, no.
We have a regular process now on a monthly basis that IT goes back and ensures that those email addresses are working.
Okay.
Okay?
And just last note on that, I'm going to ask again the directors that if they give staff a chance to answer those, because I think the last two that came in were really pretty simple that
Absolutely.
member services or somebody could answer. So, all right, anything else? Donald?
Not for me.
Bill? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Mike does. Anybody second?
Second.
All in favor,
Donald.
say aye.
Aye.
Aye.